Chapter 11. Tea Party Terrorists. One of the occupational hazards for a pilgrim in Central Asia is terrorism. It is not a new phenomenon in this part of the world. From ancient times, bandits and other lawless characters have roamed the same roads as pilgrims, spreading fear and anxiety. It does not happen often, but just one run-in with these dreadful fanatics can ruin your life. If you are not careful, they might even maim your theology. Sitting together for 3 or 4 hours at a time, drinking tea, eating, and laughing at awful jokes, this is what decent Central Asian men commonly do for fun. So it was that a group of friends began to meet every month or so in this time-honored pattern. One can easily imagine a band of Muslim terrorists gathering in the same way, covertly planning their next hit over a cup of tea. But these 7 or 8 men were not religious terrorists, even if it might seem that way to you later. Each man regularly attends one of the big city-style Western churches that had been planted in our city. This experience alone qualified the men for the following assault better than any training they could have received in Afghanistan. One evening, somewhere between a second plate of rice and a third cup of tea, the conversation turned to matters more serious. Someone very casually laid it on the table. A nasty religious bomb, that is. The ticking of its timer sounded something like this. We all know we can't bring our unbelieving friends and family into our churches. They are far too Western. One visit would prove to them that we have left our people and become Christians. Please forgive my friends for their dislike of the word Christian. For them it does not evoke the warm and fuzzy feelings that it does for many in the West. In Central Asia, Christian translates something like worshippers of a strange Russian god. Beyond that, their definition includes some other ideas that I am embarrassed to mention. As former Muslims, the men seated at the table intrinsically knew this. In fact, they seemed to know a great deal about following Isa in Central Asia. Perhaps that is why each one quickly added his own comments about what a strange and inhospitable place a church meeting could be. If there had been several missionaries in the room, this is exactly when the bomb would have detonated. Kaboom! Theology degrees and Bible school diplomas would have been blown to smithereens. Then someone dared to go further. Since these meetings don't seem to reach our own people, what else can we do, he asked. In military terminology, this would be called a secondary blast. It was probably a premeditated effort to clear the room of any residual Western theology. However, it must be remembered that this was not a room full of missionaries with agendas and methodologies to defend. These men were simply former Muslims who now loved Isa, men who only wanted more of their kinsmen to do the same. It did not matter one whit to them what we may have been taught in preparation for this pilgrimage. The theories used in seminaries and Bible colleges are unknown to them. In fact, I doubt any of them had ever contemplated the question, what is an indigenous church? I know they had not read the latest books on the subject, yet just stop to consider how well qualified they were to discuss this matter. First, they were themselves former Muslims. They personally understood what goes on in the mind of a Central Asian man the first time he encounters organized Christianity. Second, they knew full well what it was like to inwardly accuse yourself of being a traitor every time you entered a church. Perhaps even more significantly, they did not feel the need to defend the status quo. They politely assaulted it. The church traditions imported by their Western friends were like the pilgrims who brought them, strangers and aliens to this land. This was something these men could see clearly. True to their Eastern heritage, they had been exceptionally respectful to their guests. proper hospitality is immensely important in their worldview. Nevertheless, deep inside, they all knew the time had come. Even in Central Asia, sooner or later, it is time for friends and their traditions to go home. What these men may have lacked in theological training, they made up for in wisdom, the kind of wisdom that comes from simply living your whole life in Central Asia. They may not have known the Bible as well as their educated pilgrim friends, but they could see something most of us did not. These followers of Isa knew that something needed to change about the way church was being done. But they also realized that few missionaries would be willing to hear their extremist views. I know these guys. They are all noble and peace-loving. They would never intentionally hurt the pilgrims they know and love. However, even a hint of such radical ideas would be considered religious terrorism by many missionaries. Only time will tell if these men will be dismissed as dangerous heretics or hailed as heroes of the faith. But then again, there are many things that are only revealed with the passage of time, and some things will remain hidden until eternity.